We're rolling.
You ready?
Yeah, I think
Josh,
so.
are you ready?
Am I sitting in the chair? Am I physically in the building?
I thought you were still in Milwaukee.
Mentally, I am in Milwaukee. Thank you.
What's up, everybody? Welcome today to the Union Fitness Podcast. We have the beautiful Josh Elsass doing work, and we have the even more beautiful Elizabeth Miller, the yin to my yang, the spaghetti to my meatball, the lamb to my tuna fish, as the guy from Big Daddy would say.
I really don't think we need any kind of sexual innuendos on the podcast today. Thank you, Curtis.
Well, this is a special one for me. If you see us in the gym, we will be bickering, fighting, acting like we hate each other.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, this is the most important person in my life besides my mom. Shout out, Mom. And
Yes,
yeah.
same.
Sure.
That's what when Giannis won the championship last night, he went right to his mama.
Yeah,
and he hugged his mama first.
Everybody's like, it wouldn't be possible without this and this and this. Like, dog, it wouldn't be possible without your mother.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she birthed you.
Yeah, exactly. So, we got Liz here, and we wanted to bring her on the show today to fill in for Jared, who just got married.
Shout out Jared.
Shout out
His
Yay.
mini honeymoon.
Welcome to the club.
The dancing fiasco.
Oh my gosh.
The wild man of all wild men.
Mhm.
Josh
Amazing.
Conroy split his pants or what?
Josh Conroy had to go buy a new pair of pants because he said his hamstrings grew so much since the last time he had to wear dress pants. So the morning of, he had to go buy a new pair of pants.
So you were like, shout out to my programming. is
I was
essentially
like,
what we just said.
oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
That's what I said. But yeah, so I wanted to bring Liz on today because, Liz has done a lot of things as far as like lifting and different competitions and has seen the ups and downs and the peaks and valleys of it, and has gone through a lot and experienced a lot, both mentally and physically. And, she's been joking a lot about me bringing her on this podcast. And I was like, no. And then, we're at home and I'm like, hey, you want to come on the podcast and talk about your experiences over the years? She was like, wait, you're serious?
It's like, are you actually being serious? Is this a real question? And he's like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
I'm
So
excited.
what we're going to do, I want you to introduce yourself to the people, where you're from, what were some of your hobbies, what got you into lifting, and then we're going to go from there.
Sounds good. So I'm Liz Miller. I'm Curtis's wife, if you do not know. I am originally from Pittsburgh, and then I went to high school at Olsh, Our Lady of the Sacred Heart, which Cam Johnson from the Suns was on. So
The
I
only
was a
reason
Suns,
she was
literally
rooting-
the only reason that I
rooting for
was
the
rooting for the Suns. So
Sucks to suck.
I know.
She was like, go Cam. I'm like, you've never met him.
But I
He
feel
just went
like
to your school.
we only have 100 kids per grade, so it's a pretty, even though he was a year after me, so
So irrelevant.
Still don't care.
Yeah.
He got his ass handed to him.
Oh, he played. I was excited. I feel
He
like
did play. He
yeah.
did play.
Yep. So so I went to Olsh. I played basketball and did track for a little bit. I was really not the best basketball player, though. I was good in terms of defense and hustle, but I don't think I can. I was trying to think about this today. I don't know if I consistently started ever. Occasionally I did, but nothing where it was like I was the go-to starter. I was really good, like I said, defense, hustling. That's why the coach liked me, is because I worked really hard, but I wasn't like an all-star shooter at all. So it's not like I was a natural athlete, is what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
I wasn't Cam Johnson. So, at all.
Maybe he just out hustled and outworked.
I
Who
know.
knows? Who knows?
So I played basketball in high school and then track, and then went into college. Sorry, were you gonna say something?
No,
Okay.
I'm just listening.
So whenever I got to college, I just started lifting. I was trying to think about it this morning too. There was an app that kind of got me into lifting, like of all things.
So you didn't know anybody who actually like worked out or lifted?
No. So after my freshman year, my boyfriend and I at the time had broken up. And afterwards I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to get into lifting. Like I'm really going to work out. And so that's why I wanted to start working out, was just to, for myself, whatever. But it's not as if I feel like a lot of females start working out because they know they have like either friends that bring them into the gym or maybe a boyfriend or a male that brings them into the gym. But I just kind of wanted to start working out. So
you just like legitimately just ventured in there on your own without really knowing anything.
Yeah. And this app, I can't remember what it was, but it had like sets and reps, and it actually was like a strength app, and it was totally free. And of course I can't remember the name, but that's how I started doing my workouts per se. And then it's not as if I had a program. Like I think I did every Monday, I did the same exact workout, and I just tried to do a little bit more weights, kept the sets and reps the same. But that was kind of how I grew through college, and I really didn't know anything. I didn't know what I was doing, and that's kind of.
But you enjoyed training.
Yeah, exactly. I enjoyed training. And that was it. I kind of enjoyed training. I didn't have a program. I didn't have more or less a group of people that I was working out with. It was just kind of me by myself at the time.
But I think that's the beauty of it all, right? Like when I first started lifting, I didn't have anybody. I just kind of like ventured in because of shit that I was dealing with in my life.
Yep.
And I was like, man, this really makes me feel good, and I'm getting better. And I think like that's what people were missing, man. It's like I got to go in, I got to look a certain way, I got to do a certain thing, and it's just like, why are we here? And that's cool that that's how you stumbled upon it. So like, when we met each other, so you moved down for a teaching position to Maryland, where I was living. And the week that I got hired as the new trainer there was the week that you just had moved down there. It was like destiny, right? So
you know the story already.
So I am the new guy at the gym, and they're just like, anybody who walks in the door, Curtis, talk to them. Here's a consultation. Here's a trainer, or here's a client. And so she comes in. And first of all, I saw it on my schedule. It was like 5 or 6 p.m. at night. And I'm like, I don't want to, why? Who is this Liz? Why is she keeping me here till 6 at night?
You probably could have went home at 3.
Probably, because I didn't have anybody. But so you walk in the gym, and you told me what some of your goals were that you wanted to get into. You want to learn how to squat, bench, and deadlift correctly, right?
And as a power lifter, you're probably like, oh yeah, this
No,
girl.
it was like my first opportunity to like teach somebody at that gym what I had learned, so it was really cool. And I think we just instantly had a really good connection, and the rest is history. But it was shortly after that you just randomly signed up for a bodybuilding show.
Yeah.
Like from what I remember, it was out of nowhere.
Yeah. So my sister had done a powerlifting competition. So we had met that August. We didn't start dating for, I don't know, half a year later or whatever. But my sister did a powerlifting competition in December, and she didn't have a coach. She just kind of did it randomly. And she just did it from finding stuff off the internet. And afterwards, I was like, oh, yeah, like a goal of mine had for a really long time was to do a figure competition. I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to do it. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to find a coach and I'm going to do it. So it was right around December, right after she did her competition, that I decided to, yeah. Okay.
So that's the day of your first show, right? How long did you train for that?
So I did a 20-week prep. So 5 months. So I was at a deficit for a total of 5 months. So
sure.
That was a long
And
time.
it was, from what I remember, it was very strict. You followed everything exactly as you were supposed to, from what you were eating to your training to your recovery. Everything was very, very strict and exactly like it was supposed to be. And you ended up doing really, really good. And then you did a second show, what, like
2 weeks later.
2 weeks later?
Yeah. Yep.
So at that point, you're probably like on top of the world, right? You looked up until that point the best you ever had, probably.
Yep.
Right? You were in great shape. You accomplished something that you were probably scared to death to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're on a high, right? And then, kind of how did you respond to that? Like what happened next when that was all said and done?
So after my competition, I think it was after my second competition. So leading up to it, although I looked absolutely the best that I ever had, in that instance, I still picked apart every part of my body, because that's what bodybuilding is. It's you're looking at yourself and comparing, well, this part needs to be leaner. And looking back, I did that. Even though I was the absolute best shape I was ever in, the leanest I ever was, I should say, I still look back and like, it really wasn't, I wasn't that lean per se. Looking at it, I can say that I was, but in that instance, I still wasn't happy with that. But I still was, like you said, I was riding a high. I had accomplished this goal that I had set out for 5 months. And when it was all said and done, I remember the nights that I got home from that second show, I binged so bad. I don't know if you came over or not.
No, you.
I was literally on the bathroom floor, like about to. I think I ended up throwing up.
Yeah, you were calling me.
Yeah,
you called me. We were on the phone, and you were laying on the bathroom floor the night you came home from the show, and you had just binged so hard on what, like
everything,
just like junk food. Like,
I think it was just food in general, because up until my peak week, the week before the competition, I had 600 calories a day. So
that's crazy.
You go into it and you have this regimented thing.
That's
so,
like, Josh, that's like a meal for us. That's less than a breakfast.
It is. Yeah, I was gonna say it's less than breakfast.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So it's 600 calories a day plus what I think I was doing like 2 hours of cardio a day as well, maybe 2.5.
Holy shit.
So I wasn't prepared for the post competition. So I was prepared to getting to that, but I'm someone that has to have a goal, and I'm really good with growth, and I can do whatever I need to do to get to that goal. But whenever I was done with that, I was like, what do I do now? I really began to have a form of an eating disorder because I had been restricted for 5 months. And, I'm so glad that I had done it because I got a really good learning experience from it. But at the same time, it was really, really hard. The post show, I should say.
Yeah. So
I can't even fathom. Like, so Jessie Thiessen, who goes here, has been talking a lot on her social media about building back to what a non-deficit or a normal body weight is, and that mental struggle, but also that relearning to eat thing.
Yep.
Sure.
And like, I have a friend, Paige, who's a very, very competitive bodybuilder. She does 3 or 4 shows a year.
Wow.
And like,
that's crazy.
But she tries to string them. Like, so she can come out and then go back in.
Mm-hmm.
And right now she's in deficit, I think, on her like 5th or 6th month, like you were. And I mean, she is she's shredded, but you can see what it's doing to the rest of her body.
Sure.
Like, you're just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's just insane.
Yeah. And I mean, like, it's hard to remember because like we were living in that moment together, and we were still, newly together. But I knew, I was like, man, she's not doing good right now. Like, and I knew, I hardly even knew how to be a boyfriend. Right. I was like, I just need to be there for her. I didn't know what to do, what to say, but you overcame it for the most part on your own.
Can we talk about that for a second? Because, so I don't know if you've watched the Eddie Hall documentary that's on Netflix. Of course we all have, because Eddie Hall's the man, right? The wife of a bodybuilder, the partner of a strong, you know what I mean? Like, that is such a crazy role to be, especially if you're not competing and you don't get it, and you're just watching your loved one put themselves through all this shit. Like, what? And like, what's even worse is you got it, you understood
exactly.
Like, where do you walk that line between like, you need to get your ass to the gym today and do your fucking cardio because you want her to succeed, and like, you're like, yes, but then on the other side you're like, my person is not okay right now.
Yeah, man, It's really tough. I mean, we've had this discussion multiple times, and it's still something we haven't figured out because she's seen me go through 7 powerlifting meets.
I don't know. I lost count. And maybe I thought it was 9 or something.
Okay.
It's been a lot.
Yeah. No, Josh, I've done 15 powerlifting meets. Right. When we met, my total was 1,500 pounds.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that adorable, folks? He remembers his total when they met.
He remembers all of that stuff.
But wait, what's our anniversary? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, right.
So, and then, I just did my 15 meet and got my 12,000 pound total and 2,000 pound total. But she was there for every pound. Yeah. And I got to be honest, man, like, I don't regret like going through this, but I do wish that at times I could have been a little different to her during that time, because you get so blinded by what your goals are and you think they're so important, and maybe they are, right? But to what extent and what do you sacrifice? And I'm not anywhere near the best in the world, so I can't even imagine what that's like. But just to get where I am and the things that I've had to do and what I've had to go through and what she's had to go through, I do apologize to her sometimes, you know what I mean? Because it's stuff that maybe I've said because you're just so anxious, or dude, I'm scared to death sometimes when I'm training. When I get under 700-800 pounds, I am terrified, and I take that fear and I project it in different ways to try to take it off my mind. And maybe, I'm short-tempered, or maybe I'm not speaking to her, one day or something like that. So it is really tough. But what's crazy is at the end of the day, she always wants me to get my ass back in the gym and go towards my goal. And that's the craziest part.
Liz, how is it being like as a competitor yourself, and then the flip of it, right? Like, how is it for you?
Well, saying that I've been with Curtis for, I think it's 9 meets. I have learned how Curtis is around his competition. So like, if he thinks he's short-tempered, like, I don't take it personally, like, I'm not like, oh, like, he's upset with me, whatever. Like, I just know that right now he's stressed. And I think that comes with being in a good relationship and, just time knowing each other and
communication.
Yeah. Communication. Sure. And, I don't take that personally at all. I don't remember the first part of your question. Sorry.
No, like being on like both sides. I mean, like,
oh, for me, it was, so I know we're kind of skipping to, recently I have done a strongman and a powerlifting competition, and seeing how Curtis was, that was very interesting because I know I could see how stressed he was, because I am not, like, I get very, very anxious, and I know that, he just wants me to enjoy the moment. But like, going to my strongman competition, like, right before, I was crying. I was like, oh my God, I'm so nervous.
We're on the way to the event.
Yeah.
We're like about to pull in the parking lot, and she just starts sobbing.
Yeah.
And the part of me, like, all of the people I grew up around, they'd have been like, get your shit together.
Yeah.
It's time to work. And like, so that's kind of like ingrained in me. But I've learned over the years of being together, that's not how this works, man. Right. This is your wife. And I sat there, we're at a red light, and I'm like, hey, let's talk. Tell me what you're feeling.
Aww.
I'm like, why are you crying? And we talked through it, and she went and killed it.
Yeah.
But I think that's 2 completely different approaches to competition. Is I'm 100%, I shut everything out, and I don't talk to people. I don't go out. I haven't seen my family at some points, what I mean?
Yeah.
But then, and she's kind of like the opposite, she gets real nervous, and it makes me nervous because I'm like, man, I don't want her to feel like this. And then, man, I don't want her to hurt herself. And, so I don't know how to react sometimes. I'm like, what do you want me to do?
Right.
Just tell me what you want me to do, and it's hard.
But for you, that's you being a really good coach, because there's some people that would say, get your shit together, whatever, versus me, where like, I just needed to talk through it. So you knew from communication and just dealing with me, what I needed to perform better.
Yeah.
So
moral of it is, it's stressful for both of us.
yeah,
Right.
You know what I mean?
Regardless of who's competing.
It's Josh, we don't have kids.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I can imagine that's extremely stressful.
Right.
But like us going through these things together is like one of the more stressful things
Sure.
I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when we see each other compete and then we see the outcome in achieving those goals and being scared to death and seeing something through regardless, like that's everything, you know?
Absolutely.
And I wouldn't change it. But when it's happening, man, it's nerve wracking.
Those moments right after you compete, like whenever we share together, are some of the most, the best.
It's like a couple hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh no, yeah. So I competed once, and I competed with my guys. So like there was no need for Anastasia to support me because we all competed together. We all trained together. It was like this big group activity almost. We used to laugh that powerlifting is a team sport. But like when she competed, like every time I was up here. Like every lift she hit, it was going through it with her. When she ran her half marathon, I'd never been so like much of a wreck in my entire life. I've coached in championship games. I've played in championship games. Nothing to like the morning of race when I had to say goodbye to her, and I'm like, I hope I see you when this is over. Like, and it's just like, oh no, I get it. And then like now we're training together, which has been its own insane journey, and I want to get Sky and CJ in here to talk about that because training together is like that get your shit together moment all the time, like is running through my brain. We used to play intramural sports together, and I'll never fucking forget this moment. We were playing soccer, and I was on the bench, and she was chasing a ball down headed towards the bench, and I started yelling time because she had time. Well, Anastasia didn't play like team sports. She didn't know what time meant, so she just stood up. She quit running, quit chasing the ball, just stood up. And then somebody came and took the ball, and she's like, "Why'd you fucking yell time?" And I'm like, "'Cause you had time."
I would probably reacted like her though. I probably
the same thing.
I definitely would have stopped. I'm like, oh, does that mean that time is done?
Yeah. And it was like, oh man, I think we talked about it for a month.
And then you go home that day, and like maybe you don't talk on the ride home. Yeah. And then you got to figure out like, okay, how do I explain to her why I said what I did without being a dickhead?
Why I'm a crazy person screaming time in the middle of an intramural sports game.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, so I mean, like CJ and Skyland, they seem like they do well training together. I have heard them go back and forth.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But I think that's just with couples wanting to be hard-headed with each other. You know what I mean?
I think it's also a training partner thing. You've definitely gotten into it with your training partner before.
Dude, I've almost gotten in fist fights with training partners. Right. You know what I mean? But, you know, when we first started, when we first got together, we would train together. And I remember she was getting ready for her first powerlifting meet.
God, I almost put that video.
And it was my duty to make sure she was as prepared as possible.
Was it though? Or did you think it was?
In my mind, it was my duty, as my obligation.
Sure.
It would be different if I had like a normal career.
Yeah.
But like this is also part of my career. You know what I mean?
I get it, because I felt the same way when Anastasia started playing hockey.
Yeah.
I was like, you're going to be the best.
Right.
It's like, no, she's just going to be okay. Because she's 25 trying to learn a sport for the first time.
Exactly. Right. But these are things I was so blinded by my competitiveness and in my goals that it kind of took over on how I was coaching her.
Oh, no.
So we were benching one day. And
I think it was my last heavy bench.
Yeah, it was your last heavy bench going into the meet.
Oh, wow, that close to the meet too.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
no.
She, up until this point, every week, she was crushing bench press. Crushing it. And for both of us, it's funny because that's like mentally our weak point, you know. And she's crushing bench. I'm like, dude, you're on pace to bench like 150, you know. And it was her last heavy bench. I was like, let's take 135.
Yeah, it was 135.
135, right? So I don't remember exactly, but I know you missed it.
Yeah, I think I took it because I was looking at those videos today. I think I took it like 4 times.
Yeah.
And I don't know. He stopped and started.
You missed it. Yeah. I think you missed it twice. And one of the times you were laughing after you missed it.
Oh my God.
Right?
Yes, this is the worst whenever we're training together.
I think it was like after her second miss, I was like, and I have a rule. Like if you miss it twice, you're done with that weight for the day. Unless you are a super high level lifter and you pull your head out of your ass and you go attack it. But that takes decades. So she missed it twice and she starts laughing afterwards. And I just start popping off. Like I'm pretty sure I was cussing at her and everything.
Well, I will say, I sometimes, like, whenever Curtis is training me, like, he takes it very serious. It's really, like, and I do take it seriously too, but it's not super serious. You know what I mean? Like, this, I'm not about to break any records. Yeah. And, like, you know, all you can do, like, yeah, I was ticked and, you know, whatever, and I ended up benching over 135 at my competition, but you know, I still do that now sometimes. He's like, why are you laughing? I was like, I'm just you know, like, I don't know. It's just, sometimes he's just really serious. And
more of the story.
Yeah, we don't train together.
I left. I went home.
Oh, wow.
I went home. I picked my bag up. I said, I'm done. I'll see you at home. I might have still been living with my parents. I might have went home to my parents' house. So I get in my truck and drive 35 minutes all the way home. Yeah.
Oh my God, Curtis Miller.
And
that's incredible.
And you know, but we went to the meet. You did great. You know, you hit all the weights that you wanted to, and life was fine, and we learned. Yeah. But that is, so we can't, I don't want to say we can't train together, but if one of us is preparing for a competition,
stay the fuck away.
We kind of we support from a distance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We'll train together whenever we're not one of the others is not competing. Yeah. But whenever one of us is in a competition, we will, like you said, support from afar. I also personally just like I've always trained by myself. I don't mind. I really enjoy it. Curtis has always had, well, not always, but has had training partners more recently, I should say. So
I moved up here to train with people.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
But
she's killing your backstory, man. You've been preaching like I gave up everything to move up here to train by myself.
Yeah. She's like, you know, Curtis has always had somebody
well,
help
and then
him
I stopped. Sorry.
Okay. Have I? But so I mean, like, let's back up a little bit, right?
Thanks.
You did your first 2 bodybuilding shows.
Yes. And
you had a hard time coming back.
I definitely, hold on. So I really had, I definitely started to get an eating disorder from it. Not saying that I would like binge frequently, but you know, I after my show, I didn't have a plan at all. Like I didn't know. Well, I knew 2 people that had done shows, but they're both males. And I feel like males have a very different experience versus females whenever they're competing in bodybuilding.
I think it's just not talked about as much.
For males? Or?
Yeah. Now, I will say, I think women go through it more often. I really do, because society, they are set up to fail when it comes to, you know, objective stuff like this, you know, but I think men have too much pride and ego to talk about things like this after a competition. You know what I mean? So I do think they go through it more frequently than you hear about, you know, but
definitely looking back, I probably, like, I wish I would have known someone in that area that would have said, hey, Liz, like, you're probably not ready to do this show. Like, I didn't have enough muscle to do well at it. Like, it was a really great thing to say, like, oh yeah, I did it. But I wish my coach, because I just got a random coach off the internet, and I wish she would have said, like, hey, like, let's do a building phase. Like, you need a little bit more muscle before we do this, instead of just doing a 5-month cut where I totally messed up all of my hormones. I got an eating disorder from it, and I was looking back at pictures, and I definitely, post-show, I didn't do any cardio afterwards. I didn't have a meal plan for afterwards on how to reverse diet, so I just ate, didn't do cardio, and I gained a lot of weight. So that's what that picture is.
Let's compare these two. What did you weigh on the left, and what were you on the right?
I really think I was like 125-ish on the left. I don't know. And then, right? That sounds right. 125, 130.
Yeah.
And then I think I got up to like 170, 175.
Holy. fuck.
And like how short of amount of time?
This was literally like a month later.
Yeah.
This wasn't like it was like a couple months later. Like, look, I don't know.
How come we're not celebrating that? Well, they always talk about how Jordan put 40 pounds on in 4 months between the 89 finals or 90 and 91 finals, right?
Yeah.
Come on, we should celebrate that effort.
And you know me, I'm like, yeah, you thick.
Yeah. You're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So I definitely I definitely weighed more. So in the right picture, like I think I was like consistently like 160 before my competition. So it's not like I was anything crazy at all. But after my competition, I was way, like, I don't know if you can see it in my face. Like my face was like,
babe,
whoa.
We can see it.
Like I look like I got stung by a bee.
Well, it's interesting because you can still see the ab definition, right? You can still see a bit of the quad definition, calf, like even bicep, that kind of stuff. Your shoulders are still pretty sculpted. It's just like face and then chest and hips.
Yeah,
it's
for
just
sure.
like,
I know.
But that's what happens when you do it in 30 days.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So then, I mean, after that,
I'm sorry.
Then you're preparing for your first powerlifting meet, like we talked about.
Yep.
And so you go from that, you're like, hey, I want to try to do a powerlifting meet. I'm like, all right, let's do it. So you didn't have a lot of time to train for that. That was like a couple months of training.
So what happened was I did my 2 bodybuilding shows in the spring. Then actually I ran a half marathon like right before that really big picture was taken.
Yeah, that was like a couple weeks
after.
That
was 2 weeks after.
Oh my gosh. So these don't even look like the same fucking person. So I assumed that this was like
no
to lose the weight you went running kind of story, but no.
So she went 2 bodybuilding shows.
Yeah.
Half marathon and then that
was the progress picture. That progress picture was 2 weeks after the marathon.
Like that's insane.
I know. So, and like that's what happens whenever I didn't have a plan. I had no idea what I was doing. I was way in over my head. And then of course I was struggling mentally as well. Because your bodybuilding is very objective and what do I look like, and that was obviously really hard. So
so you're comparing yourself to where you were in your eyes your best, right? And then so you go from that picture and we put a plan together and you step on the platform for the first time. I think this picture you ended up deadlifting 305 pounds. And what's crazy is all of the lifts that I've hit, right? It's just a feeling you'll never forget.
Yeah. That
one right there, seeing her hit her last deadlift of her first meet is the greatest feeling I've ever had.
I get that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that was just really, really cool. And seeing her come back from all that craziness that had happened over the last few months was just really neat. And it told a lot about her as a person, So I mean you did another powerlifting meet.
A couple months later,
a couple,
So just to give it some context, after my bodybuilding show, I did, my half marathon a couple weeks later, but then my powerlifting meet wasn't until a full year later. So I let my body reset a little bit because my hormones were all messed up, get back to some type of training. But even I think it took my body about a year and a half, almost 2 years to fully get to like a normal from messing it up from that deficit and then like the binging period and to get my hormones back to a normal level. So even though I'm doing my first powerlifting competition, a year later, like looking back at those pictures, like I'm still like not like bee stingy, but I'm not at that level of that picture was, but I still wasn't back to like my normal level, I should say.
Yeah.
So it took a really long time.
Let's talk about the athlete side of this and less about the mental health and body side of it, because that's wild too. You go from like high reps, high sets, low weight, like looking good, cutting to endurance event where you run a half a marathon and then now strong power lift, fuck the shit up, like one max out the whole 9 yards. Like what are you like? Holy shit, girl. Like, what the fuck?
So I The half marathon was just kind of, I like just did it. I know it sounds really dumb to say.
Wow, okay.
But I mean,
Okay.
I was doing so much cardio. So hold on a second. I was doing so much cardio from bodybuilding that my endurance was really high. But I can't run really well because I get shin splints and my knees hurt. So I actually only legitimately ran, I think like 2 or 3 times before the half marathon. And then I just ran the half marathon. But my endurance was so good from bodybuilding that's how I could do that. So
Anastasia did the same thing. She's like, I'm gonna sign up for the half marathon, and then like she trained a little bit for it. Then it got cold, and then the marathon's in the spring, and she's just like, oh, I'm still gonna do it. And I'm like, well, you haven't trained it on. She's like, no, I'll be fine. Sure enough, fine. Fine.
Yeah.
We're out there dying, like we would be dying.
Yeah, sweating it out, just watching them race.
We probably have to train for months every day.
We have to train for months just to watch them race. Yeah. Like I have to like watch like torture videos just to be like prepared for this. Yeah.
It's like when your significant other's going through a pregnancy and you got to take the classes with them to learn how it goes. Like that's how
I've
you have
never done that.
I haven't either. I've just seen it on TV shows, you know what I mean? Like Fresh Prince and stuff like that. So
I'm busting your balls.
So like that's how it is. You're like, oh, they're about to go through this. All right, I gotta
You're
prepare.
like, at least I get to eat ice cream at midnight.
Oh, dude, when she was going through her bodybuilding show, her first one, our first date, it was at her house. I came over after work. She was eating tilapia and asparagus, right? And I'm like, hey, kind of want some ice cream. Do you mind if I go to Baskin Robbins? And she was like, no, whatever. So she gets in the car with me, my 96 Camry, by the way, at the time.
Still going.
Yep. And we drive to Baskin Robbins. The dick that I am, I look at the menu and I'm like, what has the most calories? Because, I was bulking. And it's Reese's Peanut Butter Cup Sundae, and it's like 2,500 calories. And I'm like, let me get that. And I sit there in the car and just eat it right in front of her.
More than I could have in I don't know how long.
Oh, that was probably 3 days worth of eating for her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it didn't even faze me, so I'm sorry.
It's fine.
But
I was fine.
Yeah, but that was that.
I'm so sorry for you.
Yeah. But I mean, one thing that, and I know we've talked about this, but what are some of your biggest takeaways from all that? I mean, physically, emotionally, mentally, the good and the bad.
Because it's what, a year and a half, you said, all told?
Yeah.
Maybe 2 full years?
Wait, 2 full years of.
So from the time you start training for bodybuilding to the powerlifting meet.
That was a year and a half, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from competition to competition, it was a full year.
Yeah. Well, and then, so recently you did your first.
Well, hang on. What were your takeaways?
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Well, let's add that. So, because then we'll sum that up together.
Okay.
So,
well, yeah. I mean, you took some time off because we found out that you had a pretty serious case of scoliosis.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So I had bad back problems. So I went to the chiropractor for a while and got myself healthy, and then we moved to Pittsburgh, and then COVID happened. We were getting married, so I took a lot of time off.
Yeah, we're talking like a couple years off.
2-3 years.
And then she just comes to me one day and she's like, I want to do a strongman competition. And of course, part of me is like, awesome, let's do it. And then the other part of me is like, maybe she'll wake up tomorrow and not want to do it.
Yeah.
Just like the selfish part that gets stressed out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I was going to support her anyway, regardless. And, you went and trained every day. You had Yessie helping you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
awesome.
I didn't think you were ever going to compete in anything again. Up until that point. Up until that point, I was like, not that I didn't think you were going to, but I knew that if you never did, you would have been completely fine not competing.
Yep.
But it was just one of those things, you moved to a different state, you moved back home, you got your dream job. And then it was like, what's the next goal? Yeah. What is my next check off, and what's going to propel me, keep me moving forward to accomplish my goals. And I think it just so happened to be a strongman competition. Mm-hmm. So in the total of 5 years, let me try to do this, right? Testing myself as a husband. In 5 years that we've known each other, you've done 2 bodybuilding shows,
yes,
3 powerlifting competitions,
yes,
a half marathon, and a strongman competition.
Correct.
I'm sure you've done some 20. I'm sure you've
that
done some
overall athlete.
I'm sure you've done some
and
20,
got married and switched shades and got
Got
a new
a
job.
job. Yeah.
Probably some spelling bees in there. Some
24
competitions. Remember 24?
Yeah, so great.
But
let's do the math one.
So, that's in 5 years. That is a lot of stuff, and that's more than some people compete in a lifetime. And one thing that you and I always talk about is sometimes you feel guilty that you aren't as focused on just being really good at one thing. And then I wish that I was more like you and wasn't so addicted to being good at one thing.
Yeah.
It's so funny, man, because I've sat down in tears before, and I'm like, I wish I wasn't like this at times. Like, I wish I was fine with dabbling in everything. And she's like, I'm sorry that I'm not so
this all-star strong person.
And I'm like, no, I don't want you to be. I would not want you to be like that. But what are some of your biggest takeaways?
So like you were saying, I really struggled with that for a long time because Curtis is such an elite powerlifter, and he's married to me, and I'm not this elite powerlifter. I'm strong, but I'm not like to the level comparable in the level. So I struggled with that for a long time, that I wasn't at that level. But then I kind of took a step back and I was like, it's okay. Like I'm not going to be that person. Like I know that I'm not, and that's totally fine with me. But what I can be is the best athlete that I can be. Not the best athlete, just trying to be my best. And what I've learned is, and then I did this with my bodybuilding show, like just doing the first one, is I just set a goal and I just did it. And I, like you said, I really am big with growth. So I really want to push myself in terms of picking a goal and challenging myself and doing it for just the reason of propelling you to the next step. So like whenever I decided my most recent competitions, I did a strongman competition, and then a month later did a powerlifting competition. So that was just my goal.
4 weeks apart. Yeah. That's pretty crazy.
So that was my goal. I just wanted to do both of them back to back. And, for me, I didn't have to get first. I didn't have to, my only goal for powerlifting is I didn't want to bomb out. That was it. I was like, I just don't want to bomb out. That's it. So, I had picked that as my goal. And, so that's kind of why I had chosen those. So,
and I know I don't say it enough, but I envy that mindset, the mindset that you have, of, like, I'm just going to go in here and just like, whatever happens. You know what I mean? Like, I really do envy that about you. And it's so crazy because the 2 days after I had my bicep reattached.
Do you know this story already?
He gonna find out. 2 days after I had my bicep reattached, I had this crazy reaction, and it was the night before the Iron City Open. She was going to compete the next day. It's 9:00 at night. We're getting ready for bed, and I get this instant fever, and I started like having these convulsions, and I couldn't stand up, and I tried to get my clothes off to get a hot shower, and my body started locking up. Like my muscles from head to toe were burning because of how much they were contracting. And I was like, Liz, something ain't right. I think you got to take me to the hospital. And we're on the way there, and it's hit me. And I'm like, man, if we go in this hospital, we're going to be in here all night, and she might not be able to compete the next day. And in my mind, I was like, man, everything that you have put this woman through, she deserves to fucking compete tomorrow. So we're sitting in the parking lot at the hospital, and I go, let me just sit here for a couple minutes. She's like, why? I'm like, I think I'm feeling okay. Let's go back home. Meanwhile, I'm dying, but I knew that when we walked in there, she might not be able to compete. So she was like, if I can't compete tomorrow, I can't compete. So we go in that hospital, and we're there from 9 p.m. to 3:30. We get home, and we finally get in bed at 4:30. And she asked me, she was like, what should I do? And I go, look, you don't have to prove anything to anybody. If you don't got it in you to go compete tomorrow, don't. But I said, set your alarm when you wake up, see how you're feeling. And I just remember she comes over and gives me a kiss on the forehead, and she goes, I'm going to go compete. And she told me not to go because I had only had like 3 hours of sleep. And I told her.
Plus, you were just in the hospital, and I didn't want you there all day.
Sure. Well, I told her I wasn't going to go, and I showed up just in time for deadlifts, and on 3 hours of sleep. I mean, this is 25 pounds more than your best deadlift.
25, yeah.
Yeah, than your best meet deadlift. And I wish we had the audio, man. It was like, I mean,
the place went crazy.
The place was bonkers.
Yeah.
I started crying.
I cried, obviously.
I mean, like,
I almost started crying as you were telling the story, to be honest with you. It was just really, really cool.
The crazy part is it wasn't going to matter what weight was on that bar.
Yeah.
You know, like the fact that you walked up there after, you know, everything that you had been through dealing with me, with my surgery, the hospital, you're tired as hell. Look at your hair. It's like crazy.
Thanks.
And you walk up to the bar and you didn't give up. And right there, 99% people would have put it down. And you closed your eyes, which is the greatest part.
Oh, I don't remember. All I remember is I knew I was getting it up, like getting the bar up, because I could hear the crowd. Like whenever it was like they were cheering, and then as it got louder, because my eyes are closed, I don't see anything. So then I just opened them at the end to see that he put his hand down. I was like, okay, like I made it.
Yeah. And that was, I remember what I said about her first deadlift. Nothing will beat that one.
Yeah, not literally nothing
will ever beat that one right there. That's the coolest thing I've ever experienced.
Just to know that, like, and I think this goes towards the mindset that we were talking about. Like, I could have easily said, I'm just not going to compete today. Like, I literally got like 3 hours of sleep the night before, and you're about to hit all of your max attempts on everything. And I didn't have Curtis there, which was honestly like, and I didn't want, you know, obviously I wanted you there, but I didn't want him there because he had just been in the hospital. Like, I didn't want him to be at a powerlifting meet for the whole day. And I think that was the hardest part for me, was not having him there with me. Because he is my support. And I know that you guys get stressed during it, but just like having like the presence is so much better. So whenever I got to my deadlift, like deadlifts is my favorite event. So whenever I got to it, I started pulling, and I knew that if I got it past my knees, the rest was easy. So I was just kept saying, don't stop pulling. And I think like in the longer video, you can hear myself. I think that's what I mouthed to myself, like, just don't stop pulling. So,
and I think the whole place was yelling, don't stop pulling.
So I just like got to my knee, got to my knees, and it pretty much stopped.
Yeah.
And, I just kept going. And so to have that mindset of like, I'm literally just not giving up. Like I with no sleep and with the week that we had, and, just continuing to push yourself. And
but what it was
cliche, but
no, you want to hear something even more cliche? It wasn't the day before. It was the last 5 years of your competitiveness.
Yep.
Your ups and downs, your trials and tribulations. It was that was it right there, summed up. You know what I mean? It's not one training block. It wasn't the 4 weeks in between your strongman competition and that powerlifting meet. It was everything leading up to that point. And if you hadn't experienced and gone through the things that you did up until that point, there's a damn good chance you would have put that bar down. You know what I mean? And that's the coolest
part. Can I add something to the story?
Yeah.
So do you remember bumping into me that day?
No.
I asked you, hey, how's Kurt? And delightfully, she went, oh, he's doing great.
Really?
Like, I literally don't remember.
What a savage. You are like literally running on 3 hours of sleep, competing without your husband in this super crazy thing. And then like to the general public, you just seem like happy Liz, like always.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That's because she was on 3 energy drinks.
Oh, yeah,
so
right.
You know what I mean?
Buzzing on bulls. Yeah.
And then that evening, that nap, I still passed out. Like, even though I had much coffee and so many energy drinks, like I still like passed out.
Yeah.
So I was tired.
No,
the old saying goes that behind every great man is a greater woman. That clearly is the fucking deal here.
Yeah, for sure.
You're awesome.
Thanks.
Without a doubt, man. Like, I don't tell her enough. I try to show her.
Well, you say it on this fucking podcast all the time. You're like, yeah, Lizz, she's the best. That's why I married her. She's the coolest lady I ever met.
Besides my mom.
Yeah.
Throw it in. Because Ruth is going to listen. She shout out Ruth.
What's funny is like all the girls that I took home to meet my parents, right? And finally, I bring her home and my dad's like, she's the one. And I'm like, why? And he goes, because she reminds me so much of your mother.
Oh,
and
Jesus Christ. You're like, all right,
let's go. Let's go.
Right.
But no, man, like I don't say it enough because of how, I think I got so much pride and I'm this, big tough guy and I lift these weights and stuff like that. But I try to show you as much as possible. And I certainly wouldn't be in Pittsburgh if it weren't for her. Like no chance whatsoever, And no, I wouldn't be a lot of who I am today without you. So thank you. And I'm glad you were able to come on the podcast. And I think we had fun, with this one. So
yeah, it's a great one.
Now we got to get CJ and Skyland in here too.
Yeah, that'll be funny.
And then one of these damn days we'll get Cody and Kate in here.
Oh yeah, post-wedding.
That'll be like a 2-part deal.
Why?
Yeah.
So, that wedding,
gotcha.
and then powerlifting.
Well, I think it'll be really. I'm excited to hear their experience with having their wedding.
They're different than us.
No.
They get a long training.
Oh well, I was gonna say having their wedding and then having the meet the next week.
I'm just after.
Yeah.
That'll be cool.
I'm just excited to hear their experience.
But you got anything you want to add before we wrap it up? Any words to? You're famous now.
Yeah. Right. I would say I'm really just trying to be an athlete. I'm not trying to be super crazy. I'm not trying to be this all-star athlete either. I'm just trying to be my best athlete, and by choosing small goals. And that doesn't mean that you have to compete either. That just means that you can pick, like right now, I'm not competing. I don't have any plans to compete anytime soon, but I'm just going to work out and try to better myself mentally and physically. And just so for everyone listening, like that doesn't mean you have to compete to do so. So just try to be your best, to be your best version of an athlete, whatever that means for you.
Love it. I love it. I think we'll end on that one.
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks guys for having me.
Lizz, thanks for coming on. And Josh, as always, thanks for hosting us.
Yes,
we'll catch you guys next week. Take care.
Later, skaters.